as you can sort of fail fast and take some learnings from it. I think there's about $50 billion US spent every year on clinical trials, and we know that about 60% have design flaws that could have been addressed using AI. If you can improve your chance of success, there might be more rare conditions researched.
Welcome to Inspired by Success, the podcast where I deep dive into the mindset of successful entrepreneurs, CEOs, and thought leaders. Get ready to be inspired and gain valuable insights to unlock your true potential.
Transform your financial future with this episode sponsored by KE Financial Services.
Today, we're chatting with a visionary in AI and entrepreneurship. He's a polymath with expertise in machine learning, AI, economics, financial control, project management, economic consultancy, and digital marketing. He's passionate about digital health and ethical data use. His entrepreneurial journey has seen him advise groundbreaking ICOs and launch successful tech startups from scratch. Using AI to accelerate healthcare breakthroughs globally, his entrepreneurial spirit is shaping an exciting future. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Damon Rasheed.
Thanks, Linda. That might be the best introduction I've ever had. I really appreciate that.
What inspired your first entrepreneurial venture? Take us back, and where did this all begin?
Oh, it happened quite by accident. I was in a bookstore. I think I was 18 years old, and I saw this book on the shelf, and it was titled $1 Million Blackjack by Ken Houston. And the book was $5, and it was one of those sliding door moments. So I bought the book, and not really thinking much of it at the time. And then I took it home and I read it all in one night. And half the book was about how you could beat casinos by card counting. And the other half of the book was about the wonderful stories that the author Ken Houston had over a decade. And I thought to myself, that has to be me. That has to be my occupation. So I think for the next 5 years, I was juggling uni, but also playing blackjack around the world as a professional card counter. So if I hadn't have bought that book, none of that would have happened.
Wow. So from card counting and doing that, it sounds like an exciting journey as it is. How did you identify your first startup opportunity?
Well, like being involved in the card counting game, you actually meet a lot of very smart individuals, a lot of entrepreneurs. Just about everyone in that game is an entrepreneur. And one of my friends at the time, Tony Guago, had an idea. He said, why don't we build a poker website of all things? And this is before the boom in online poker. And we just, there was no SWOT analysis. There was no business plan. There was none of that sort of stuff. It was just, let's just build a poker website. And that website, Poker News, turned out to be one of the largest media websites in that industry in the world. It still is today. So it was just sort of stumbled across it based on people that was surrounding me at the time.
Wow. So I'm guessing you would have made a lot more money than the card counting, because that's a skill already. But this sounds like you got in at the right time as well, getting in early before the big trend.
The boom in poker came. Yeah, the boom in poker came like pretty much as soon as we set the website up. There was a worldwide boom in poker, and we're at the center of it all. And yes, it did make a lot more money than playing blackjack. I actually had a day job at the time as well, working for the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, the ACCC, as an economist. And
wow.
I think when the poker website started making more money than my day job, it was time to give the day job up and start focusing on startups and different business ideas. So it all kind of happened organically. There was no overwhelming thought process that said I have to be an entrepreneur. It just happened organically.
Wow. And see, a lot of people that do start up in the entrepreneurial journey, they do have a lot of challenges, and especially like if you don't have a business plan or you don't have that background. But what key challenges did you face as an entrepreneur?
Well, I think the key challenge is my idea any good? And if it's a novel idea, it's hard to get feedback, because when you present these ideas to people, if it's so new, I'm pretty sure when Google started out, if they went to the market and said, we're trying to build this algorithm that will revolutionize search, it's very difficult when you have these new ideas to get decent feedback. So I think that's one of the stumbling blocks is sometimes you just have to take a chance. If you believe in an idea strongly enough, you just have to have a go at it. As long as as long as you've got the resources to do it. And this is one of the things when I'm thinking about new entrepreneurial ideas. If something comes into my head and after a week I'm still thinking about it, or after 2 weeks, or after a month, I think I have to pursue it. If I can't get it out of my head and think it's such a good idea, I usually will investigate it. So that's sort of how the ideas come to me. And yeah, that there aren't, in the early days there weren't a lot of business plans or anything like that. But these days I'll put more effort into doing market research, etc. But I think if the idea is good, that's usually a green light to investigate it further.
Wow. And in this tech space, now that we've got all this AI developments and technology around, how do you stay innovative in, like, there's just so much competition out there. Every company like that wants to be successful, always, like, some of them even add AI in their company as well. So how do you stay innovative in the fast-paced tech world?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the technology itself has been out there for a long time now. So people have been running machine learning models for 10, 20 years. What's happened is that more people have exposure to this now. Data is more available. Machine learning algorithms are much more accessible than they used to be. So I don't actually think the technology has moved on in leaps and bounds over the last decade or so. Sure, there's been increases in accuracy. Natural language processing is an incredible, step forward. But overall, the principles still remain the same. It's just that more people are doing it. So I don't know if it's in terms of the technology being fast paced. I think it's more that the competition is out there, and one of the biggest, I guess, obstacles to AI is having data available. So with everyone starting to think about AI, businesses are looking into their own internal data sets more and more. Businesses, hospitals, government institutions, they're starting to think, well, maybe we have some sort of asset base here that we could, leverage using AI. So I think that as more and more of these organizations start to embrace AI and look at the possibilities, that's when we're going to start to really get an acceleration in the applications. I still think we're at the very early stages of AI, as crazy as it sounds, that all you hear about is AI, but I really do think we're at the start of this revolution. And I know that because I do talk to a lot of businesses, and I challenge them. I say, so what data are you keeping? And once they start to explain their data sets, I automatically think of all these possible applications that spring to mind, and they could utilize it. They haven't actually thought of. So there's a lot of data sets sitting in the background that are completely untapped at the moment. And once we start, exploring those, particularly in the health space, that's when I think the innovation will really start to happen.
Can you explain what data sets exactly is useful for the machine learnings that are needed in your industry in particular? Like, there's other industries that you mentioned as well that haven't taken advantage of the data, but what data sets? Is this like first party data? What type of data is it that you're talking about?
Yeah, so if you go back to first principles in machine learning, you need a data set of explanatory variables, and you need some sort of thing that you want to estimate, which we call a target. But what we find is, particularly in the health space, is that hospitals in particular sit on a lot of this really important data, but because of their, I guess, antiquated systems and bureaucracy, etc., they find it difficult to to get the full use out of that data. One example that comes to mind is that we were commissioned by a particular hospital that had data about ICU attendance, and we were asked to estimate, if someone came in and presented to ICU, what their chance of having an adverse event was based on the triage data that they presented. with on arrival, and an adverse event is dying or a significant illness that follows. And we were able to use AI to come up with a pretty accurate model in in that particular example. But there's hospitals all over the world, for example, that are sitting on this sort of data, but haven't applied a big data approach to their data sets. But it'll come in time. And you can imagine the benefit to society when we start to unlock those data sets and the information contained within. The clinical trial world where we work at the moment is another unbelievable example of this. There's been about 400,000 trials done worldwide, and there's so much information within those trials that's never been really aggregated and analyzed using a big data approach. And there's the potential here to significantly expedite medical breakthroughs using a big data approach and AI to a data set that's been sitting there for decades.
So let's take it back a little bit. Why TrialKey? Why did you create that? And why the health sector?
Yeah, so TrialKey is an AI algorithm that will predict the outcome of clinical trials and also inform clinical trial designers like pharmaceutical companies, hospitals, universities, biotechs, what they need to change in their design to improve their chances of success. So we saw a massive opportunity in the market that on average, for a clinical trial, say a phase 2 clinical trial, about $15 million US is spent just on one phase of that trial. And the fact that you could increase the chance of success by using an AI model by 5, 10, 15, 20%, with sort of minimal effort in a lot of cases, it blew my mind that big data wasn't being used by pharmaceutical companies to tackle this problem when there are often low-hanging fruit, design choices you can make when you set up a trial. When we're talking about design choices, it's things like, as simple as the number of patients that you're going to have in the trial, or it could be where the trial is going to be carried out. But then there's a lot of other technical features as well. And it turns out that AI does a very good job at optimizing clinical trial design to significantly improve success rates. And given what's at stake, it just seemed like a really good application of AI, and it's disruptive as well, I guess, because it's the way clinical trials have been designed. It's been done the same way for nearly 20 years. There's been very little innovation in that sector. So we think it can be disruptive, but also help humanity.
Wow, that's very inspiring. I'm guessing that there's a lot of funds needed to do this as well, because, with the data, you need a lot of NVIDIA has all this. I'm not an expert, so I don't quote me, but you need all the tools and the computing powers to process all that data as well. How are you getting all this funding to help you with this awesome initiative?
Yeah, that's a great question. So just to put it into perspective, to give you the listeners some sort of idea about the technology involved. So clinical trials have a lot of free text. So clinicians will type in information about clinical trials, and it's recorded in public documents. But no one's ever been able to analyze that information at scale until GPT-4 came along. So one of the things that we've done is that we've extracted, we call this unstructured data when it's free text. And it could be something around, what sort of dosage is being used for a patient, or, how frequent the dose is used, things like this. So we spent nearly a month and a half having ChatGPT-4 examine the 400,000 trials that have been done over the last 20 years to extract all of this information and convert that, I guess, unstructured data into structured data that we can use in a model. So that was, cloud-based computing, working pretty much around the clock for, 45 days. So, the tools are available now, cloud-based computing, and natural language processing models are really a game changer for this sort of data collection. And in terms of where we get our funds, we're a publicly listed company, Opal in Australia, OPL is the code. So it's actually, shareholders that have provided the funding for us. And if we can get this to work, hopefully they can get some benefit from this as well.
Wow. And what are the ethical considerations around the AI as well? Because I don't know, is there like concerns that you have as well? Because given the people that I've spoken to about AI and the data input, that's crucial as well. So are there any ethical concerns around this?
Yeah, I mean, the general ethical concerns that get raised when you talk about AI are things like, are you training a bias model? Do you have, a representative sample of data? Are the results, transparent and explainable? And are people going to lose their jobs as well? Is another big one. So when you apply these sort of concerns to the clinical trial world, there's one that springs to mind is that, let's say trial key becomes the benchmark that pharmaceutical companies and other clinical trial designers use when deciding whether to progress with the trial or not. It might be the case that some funding will get diverted to trials that are most likely to succeed, and some other trials that are less likely to succeed don't get funding but may have had a breakthrough. So, there is a chance that sort of unintended consequence could happen. I guess my argument is that what's the counterfactual? What happens today without the use of AI? Well, we know that about 60% of all clinical trials that are designed have significant design flaws. That's what the trial key algorithm has told us. And you think about all the money that's wasted. I think there's about $50 billion US spent every year on clinical trials, and we know that about 60% have design flaws that could have been addressed using AI. So you have to compare, the possibility that some trials wouldn't go ahead and actually would have had an efficacy to the counterfactual, which is all the research that's done today and all the wastage. Maybe we could streamline the approach and actually, save a lot of money and get more drugs approved and devices approved. At the end of the day, that's what success looks like. And in this industry, it's incredible. There's 30,000 clinical trials that are registered every year, but only about 40 or 50 drugs get approved each year by the FDA. Like, there's an incredible failure rate. It's astonishing. So I think AI can lift that benchmark. I think that's the opportunity. And yes, there is some uncertainty around ethics and maybe some trials might not proceed that would have shown benefit, but I think overall the result will be better for humanity.
Why is that only just that small amount get approved based on the trials? Why
It's
is that? Is it just
incredibly hard to
funding
get,
or?
the end result, which is FDA approval. You have to go through 3 phases of the trial, and after all of that's done, then you have to apply to, say, the FDA or equivalent bodies to get your drug approved. Or device approved, and that whole process is just incredibly expensive, cumbersome, time consuming. So you have all these clinical trials at the outset, and then at the end, when you only get these small approval rates, it's I think it's a market failure, and I think a lot of it is to do with very poor clinical trial design from the outset. That a lot of trials are just set up to fail.
Wow. And are you guys trying to go on the macro level with clinical trials in general? Or is there a certain, because there's different trials for different things. Are you guys
Yeah.
on the umbrella of all trials or in a certain niche?
Yeah, so we started off with just looking at randomized controlled drug trials, which are, it's quite a well-researched area. But now we've extended the platform to be able to cover any trial. So we could have, medical devices. You can have alternative therapies, all sorts of
Oh, wow.
opportunities now. So our platform can design any trial, and the predictions as well across the 400,000 trials that have previously been done cover, the full scope of, possible areas of research. So yeah, there's nothing stopping us from, exploring all areas of research, which is exciting. The model actually performs quite well. The accuracy is quite good across all therapeutic areas, which it even rare conditions, which is an interesting one as well, because you would think, a rare condition, a novel technology, how could AI predict it if it hasn't seen, that many observations in that, in that sort of area? But AI, it turns out that the model is quite good at predicting into novel technologies and rare conditions, because I think there's enough global variables when you're setting up a clinical trial that affect all clinical trials that they apply equally to rare conditions or to novel areas.
Wow. So just say, because of the advancement of technology, like AI is just advancing so fast, it's always improving now. Just say in 5 years' time, everything is like even more improved. How will AI transform healthcare and clinical trials? How will your platform do that? What's your ideal scenario?
Yeah, so our ideal scenario is that we stop a lot of the wastage. So instead of companies going out and running, or organizations running clinical trials that are designed poorly, they would first run them through, say, our simulator, optimize all the variables, and then do them in the real world. And so the ideal scenario there is that a lot more clinical trials get through the various phases and end up, being submitted for approval. So that's a great outcome for us. Also on the investment side, that's an interesting one as well, because if we can predict the outcome of clinical trials, and we've back tested this to show that, our model is very accurate, it's more than 90% accurate. There's investors that will, either through publicly listed companies or through private investments, they will start to potentially back, trials that have been trial key certified, for lack of a better word. So we think that we might in time be able to, have an influence in the investment community, and that, like things like rare conditions that nobody is researching because the chance of success is low and the payoff is low. If we can increase the chance of success, that's one of the major variables in deciding whether to pursue rare conditions, right? If you know that you can improve the chance of success of the trials from, say, 30% to 70%, the payoff will stay the same because the patient population isn't changing. But if you can improve your chance of success, there might be more rare conditions research, which would also be a great outcome as well, because there's not a lot of funding in that area because of the payoff.
Wow, yes, like it's like a great purpose as well. You're finding all these things that's going to help cures with like people with rare conditions as well. So it's beneficial in the commercial sense, but it's also beneficial for mankind. You're doing good as well. So you should be
It's,
proud. I
it's
feel like.
it's better than the gambling days, maybe. Let's just say that there's more utility. I feel better about it, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah, a great purpose there. What obstacles exist for widespread AI adoption, though?
I think this gets back to a point before, is that most, like CEOs of organizations, they don't really have a great understanding of AI yet and the capabilities. So they're sitting on these assets and they don't know how to unlock them. And we see this time and time again. And often it's just like a CEO or a decision maker doesn't need to know the ins and outs of AI to be able to benefit from their data set. They just need to know perhaps what some applications are. And I think that's up to us in the data science community to start to educate and to explain in common language what the possibilities are with your data set. Because these, the people in those positions are incredibly intelligent. They're very visionary. Usually, they just need a bit of guidance about what is possible. And then, from what I've seen, the creative processes take over, and more projects get funded, but there's this lack of information at the top at the moment, because people like us, our data science, we have all these acronyms, we create barriers, so it's up to us to explain the possibilities better to decision makers, so that these data sets can be unlocked, in my opinion.
Do you think, though, there will be a lot of implications? You mentioned before, displacements of jobs and whatnot. With your technology, do you think there will be a lot of disruption with, like people out of work?
Yeah, it's who knows where this will land. I've in the early days, I was like, yeah, maybe AI will take a lot of the repetitive, low skilled jobs, and that's what's at risk if we're being truly honest. It's repetitive activities, or low skill jobs that are usually at risk here. But over time, I've seen that companies that engage in AI infrastructure, overall they're employing more people a lot of the time, not less, but maybe the construct of their um, of their employment profile has changed, and I guess that's a bit of a risk as well, especially for developing countries that rely on income from repetitive, low-skilled jobs. There is a risk that we might see some more inequality, etc. But I don't know; it hasn't all played out yet, and I swing in my opinion here quite a lot, and I think we just need to see a bit more evidence because AI is at its in infant state, so maybe we need to see a little bit more evidence. But one thing I'm certain about is it's going to happen. So this there'll be increases in AI every year, and perhaps we just as a society we have to think about some of these unintended consequences and try to wherever we can put some safeguards in place.
And from somebody that's not in the industry, but loves to be be the right place at the right time and getting in early, just like you did with the poker thing early. What opportunities are there for somebody who is interested in this and in terms of investments? Because, NVIDIA, for example, that's like a stock that's just too high now. But, in the early days, what are your thoughts now of the opportunities available? Do you think it's like structure around cloud? In terms of how can one person take advantage of the investment opportunities around this?
Well, let me talk about the space that I'm in at the moment in predicting clinical trials. And there's there's over 1,000 companies in the US, for example, that are active in clinical trials and publicly listed. So we're using a tool like TrialKey to invest in the share market here and try to pick winners, and also the ones that are poorly designed we might sell short because you can do that in the US. So that's one use case coming off the back of TrialKey is that there's lots of investment opportunities, and I try not to spend all my day looking at those investment opportunities and look at the other side, which is trying to help pharmaceutical companies and other organizations. But that's definitely one use case. Maybe you can find the next NVIDIA or something like that through a product like TrialKey. In terms of the next sort of evolutions of AI, the natural language processing space is probably the biggest transformation. And there's so many use cases in this area, and we're only just discovering them every day. So I think if someone's interested in AI, that's something I would look at, because that really is a revolution. I mean, AI hadn't moved on that much in the last 10 years prior to GPT-4 and others coming on board now. So that is really an area that has so much potential.
Wow, that's good to know. I'm going to keep an eye out on the stock of TrialKey as well. Let's talk about leadership qualities, because it takes a certain mindset to lead a team. You're growing, and there's a lot of eyes on you too. So how do you foster innovation and learning when you're building a great team? What are the secrets that you've learnt?
I think is the first thing is you have to surround yourself with good people. And I've got this philosophy, and this might sound very harsh, but I'm just going to say it. if, let's say, if you were to have to make someone redundant or let them go, if you wake up in the morning and you're not disappointed that they're not at work, you've probably made a good decision. So I think you just have to surround yourself with good people. And what I find is that with my team, at least, is that they're the ones that are leading the innovation. They're motivated. They come to me with all the latest AI and machine learning information, what people are trying. Maybe we could try this particular approach here. So I actually end up learning from them. So I think when you surround yourself with good people and have a very flat leadership structure where, it's more of a conversation, let them specialize at what they're good at and don't micromanage. I mean, these are all things that you'll find in any sort of management textbook, but it really is true. If you empower them and get good people around you, that's half the battle. And then I think one of the challenges with AI is that there's a lot of research and development in the project work that you're doing. So you might not get a result at all after months and months and months of research. The challenge might just not be technically solvable. So that's a real, management challenge, because how do you try to minimize, going down a dead end and try to maximize, productivity, but still make sure that that you're testing new ideas. So that's probably one of the biggest challenges in AI management, is around R&D. And oh, I think if 1 in 5 ideas works, you're going pretty well. You just have to, it's not, failing is not a bad outcome sometimes, as long as you can sort of fail fast and take some learnings from it. So that's one of the real challenges, though, is the R&D aspect of AI work.
And what advice would you give aspiring entrepreneurs out there, or of professionals as well?
Yeah, I think what I just said is probably the biggest one. If you fail in something, that doesn't mean that you're a failure. It just means that particular project failed. And that like that 1 in 5 success rate is something that I really do believe in. As long as your success is big, don't be afraid to fail. The problem is, I guess, that people might have a go at something and it doesn't work and they lose confidence, right? That's just human nature. But if you can accept that most entrepreneurs have made a lot of failures, and you've got the resources to try again, and that's your personality, then just get back on the horse and try again. That would be my advice.
Yeah, I've like heard that a few times from other entrepreneurs as well, and they fail, but they don't give up, and that's what makes them successful. And Elon Musk always talks about failing as well. If you're not failing, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
Can we talk about rituals? What rituals can't you live without? I mean, because you're running a successful company, there's got to be. Do you practice mindset, meditation, fitness? What's something you can't live without?
I've only got one ritual that I can't live without, and that's playing golf. I'm an addicted golfer. In fact, I've just spent nearly 3 years building this app using AI for golf, which you can film your golf swing. The app's called golfswings.ai, and then the app will measure all your movements and then use AI to work out what movements you need to work on to fast track your golfing improvement. So I'm absolutely addicted to golf, and I thought, well, let's try to apply what I know in AI to golf, like a sport. And this sort of technology hasn't really been applied before. So that's my one ritual, I guess.
Wow. Are you filming, how are you filming your body on there though? Is it just by the camera, or are you actively
Yeah, just by an iPhone. So you can film from 2 angles, one from down the line and one from face on, and then you upload those swings to the app, and that's all it needs to be able to analyze your data and then return the movements that are most likely to lead to your handicap being reduced. And it's really quite accurate as well. We're finding the people that are using it are improving quickly.
Wow. What are your thoughts on building you've just mentioned done that app, you built that app, but you're also focusing on what you're currently building at Trial Keys. So how do you focus? Do you recommend, because some entrepreneurs, they do get excited by the next thing, it's shiny objects. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think focus is key until you get profitable, or is it okay to just do something extra on the side until, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Focusing on one or
That's
going
a really
multiple?
good question. I think that I like to have one or two things running, just to keep stimulated on both of them. If you're focused too much on one thing, you might lose a bit of perspective. And so I like to have one or two things going. But once you have too many things going, it becomes really difficult to manage, and it's at the expense of other projects as well. So I think there is a balance. Um, what I like to try to do is, if I have a couple of projects going, I like to have synergies between them. So maybe there can be some learnings from one project you could take over to another project. And
Mm.
in terms of the machine learning AI space, that is like really a reality, because if you find something that works for one particular use case, it probably works in another use case as well, and it might be something that would improve accuracy, or it could be something that would improve the speed that something will run. It is like you're applying sort of the same techniques to different data sets in different industries, but once you make an advance on one, it usually transpires to be an advancement on the other technology as well.
Nice. And who's been your biggest inspiration? Do you have any mentors or books that you can recommend?
Do you know what? I haven't read a book, and this is really embarrassing. I haven't read a book in over 20 years. And
Oh, wow.
I used to read a lot of books, but I don't know. I find like fiction or non-fiction, I just find them difficult to read.
Some
Probably
people
my
don't
biggest,
even read; they like to learn. My partner just likes to watch. That's his visual
yeah, I
learner.
watch a lot of videos,
Mm.
podcasts like this one.
Mm. Mm.
I think that's a great way to take in information.
Yep.
As far as inspirations go, I think my wife is probably the hardest worker that I've ever come across. Um, so she's a great inspiration about work ethic, etc.
Oh.
So so yeah, probably she's my. Does that sound too corny? Maybe we should cut that. No, she is my biggest
No, no,
inspiration.
that's awesome. No, that's true, because I do have interviews about relationships, and they always tell me that behind a successful person, there's a supportive person. So it sounds like you've got a great supportive person to help you grow and back you up, because that life partner that you choose is crucial for your failure or success. So,
Yeah, I think we create a great environment. She's a very senior professional person as well, so it seems to work pretty well.
wow, that's beautiful. And what's the most valuable lessons from your entrepreneurial journey so far that you've learned?
Um, I think the number one thing is that if you've got an idea and you just cannot get it out of your head for love or money, and this idea persists for months and months, you've got to explore it. And there's a lot of naysayers out there that will say they'll find reasons why they think something will fail, and the more people you talk to, um, you might start to get discouraged from doing something. But if you really, really believe in something, and you've thought about it more than anyone else, sometimes you've just got to back yourself. That's probably the number one thing that I've learned.
Oh, that's very inspiring. What bold predictions do you have about AI's societal impact? Like, do you see, like, you're an optimist, not a pessimist, but what other bold predictions do you see with AI's impact?
Well, it's going to infiltrate into everyday life more and more. Um, like we see the obvious use cases at the moment when we use our mobile phone, or people start to get electric cars and things like that. They're the obvious use cases, but there'll be more subtle use cases that you won't even know AI is being used, and that's going to infiltrate our lives more and more. And on the whole, I think it'll make our lives better, but there's definitely some, some misgivings, some potential pitfalls that we could run down as a society, and we need to be on top of that. We need to have regulators be able to keep up with policy innovation, and that does worry me because regulators sometimes move at the speed of glaciers when it comes to new technology. So that's probably one of the biggest concerns: is how do we continue to innovate, make people's lives better, but also have those safeguards in place through regulation and monitoring, etc. And that probably is the biggest challenge.
Yeah, I totally agree. It is too slow as well, the regulation. So what excites you about the future?
Oh, well, the immediate excitement is that we could start to get some use cases for trial key and put our big idea into reality, like make it a reality, and then have companies start using our clinical trial design software to design better trials. These trials take a year or two to run through the various phases, but in a couple of years I'd like to say that trial succeeded because of trial key's input, and it's benefited humanity. So that's really exciting for us. We've spent 2.5 years developing this project, and now it's ready for use. So that's really exciting when you actually get to the stage where you can start to get some customers and some use cases.
Wow, that sounds exciting. And what are you doing towards getting the message out as well, just to try and make everyone aware of this technology?
Well, great podcasts like this one. We've done a few of those, and really just talking at conferences and presenting, the trial key product, but also trying to get in touch and present to as many, decision makers in the biotech space as we possibly can. The feedback so far has been wonderful in terms of the acceptance, and that was a real concern of ours, that will this product be accepted? Because you're really presenting to medical experts, and we're just a couple of data scientists that had an idea and have a product, but will it be accepted? But it has been. So so we're out there, having as many conversations as we can with those medical professionals and speaking at conferences, podcasts. That's been our approach so far.
Wow, it is groundbreaking technology, and I'm sure you guys are going to do well, especially with the lives that you'll be able to impact once it's successful and up and running as well, and all the costs that's going to be saved from all the the trials as well. So it's amazing. What does success mean to you personally? How would you define success?
I think I've never been good at setting goals. I think when I was 21, my dad said to me, "What are your goals?" And I'm like, I don't know. I don't really have goals. So I think I kind of live in the here and now. But success, if I was to put my mind to it, success would be that a product like Trial Key is adopted and used frequently to get better outcomes for society. That's what success would look like for me. But I tend to just try to stay in the present and not to think too far ahead about that sort of stuff. But yeah, if I was pushed on it, that would be my answer.
Beautiful. Finally, where can people find you?
So as I said, we're publicly listed. So we've got a website, opyl.ai. You can find all of the information about Trial Key and about our company there. And of course, I'm listed as one of the directors of the company, and then you can find my LinkedIn profile as well through that link.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, Damon. I wish you all the best, and it was lovely to chat to you.
It was great to chat to you as well, Linda. I enjoyed the podcast, so thank you.